What is women's suffrage?
Is this a quiz?
Yeah.
Okay. Women's suffrage is the struggle for women to earn the right to vote.
Okay, Ms. Mora, how do you think why they the government to take so long for pass the 19th Amendment?
Well, I mean, the government is run entirely by men, so there were no women to advocate for an amendment to be passed. If you don't feel the effects of discrimination or marginalization, then you're not going to feel the need to change anything. Plus, women didn't have representation in order to get an amendment passed or written or signed. So we suffered a lot. I remember very well there was a remembrance march in Seneca Falls when I was little that my family used to go to, where women were beaten, women were jailed, women were, had their rights taken away for trying to get the right to vote. So it didn't just come easily. It was very hard fought. It was a terrible, suffrage was not easily won.
Thank you.
What was the 19th Amendment originally called?
I'm pretty sure it was the Susan B. Anthony Amendment, because she was the first person to really bring attention and advocacy to women and to women's rights at a high price. But, that was her whole life's work. She didn't do anything more. She didn't, have a family. She didn't do anything more than devote her life to making those opportunities happen for women.
Are women's rights different than civil rights?
In my opinion, no. They're the same. That people are people. That's a song, I think. That people should have equal rights. That women should not be singled out specifically by gender. Men are not singled out specifically by gender. We outnumber men, and yet we are the minority or the marginalized, subjugated race based on our gender destiny.
Who was the first woman in the United States to earn a medical degree?
I think it was Elizabeth Blackwell. And she went to college actually at U of R, University of Rochester, which is about 20 miles outside of where I went to undergrad, which was Geneseo. That whole area of central New York State it's really the birthplace of women's rights and women's suffrage. And the idea that women could go to college is so new. Okay, so here's the story. So I remember my mom, when she graduated from high school in 1963, saying she could go to college to be a nurse or a teacher. And she chose to go to college to be a teacher. But that most women were just getting married. That people didn't think, okay, I'm definitely going to school. It was the exception, not the rule. That was what? 50 years ago? That's nothing. It's a minute ago. So,
Ms. Moore, why are you knowledgeable on the topic of the 19th Amendment?
because I've been a woman for 46 years, and I was 10 years old when Ronald Reagan was elected president and ERA was voted down. And I remember very well asking my mother at the time if women's rights were ever going to be passed and if a woman was ever going to be president. And I remember her telling me when I was 10, no, she didn't think that a woman would ever be president in my lifetime. I'm also from Rochester, New York. I was born in Leroy. Seneca Falls is the birthplace of women's suffrage. My cousin Mary Norman was the first female president of the college. Susan B. Anthony was from Canajoharie, which is where my whole family's from, in Albany. So women's suffrage was always a big thing that we talked about, and I really did take it for granted. I thought as a kid that, of course, women should vote. There's no question. But the older I get, the more frightened I become, and the more I realize it's a really new right for us. It wasn't that long ago that men owned us as property, that our husbands had to take us places, that we only counted for half of a vote. So it scares me that students your age don't really understand how easy it would be to take those rights away.
What do you think the world would be like today if the 19th Amendment was never passed?
Well, let's see. What countries exist right now that show women in subservient, marginalized roles? We would be taking orders from our husbands. I probably wouldn't be in this job. I would probably be home with my family. I would not be allowed to go to college. I probably wouldn't be allowed to go to high school. Susan B. Anthony was one of the first women to advocate for co-educational studies for women. I mean, before men and women were separate in their education. You know, women went to little women's colleges. You could be a nurse or a teacher, maybe, but mostly people expect you to get married and have families. So this idea that, you know, we have a woman running for president right now is remarkable. However you feel or don't feel about Hillary Clinton, it's remarkable that that's happening.